Please don't have Basti, please, please. No! Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's battles are something else, I must say. So I used this team in the Open Great League and I went 5-0 with it. I'm not saying it's a good team, but it performed pretty well for me for the battles that I did play. However, I should warn you guys, it is extremely weak to Bastiodon. You see one Bastiodon, most likely you are going to lose the game. I do win a game against a Basti though. It's the game that's running in the background, but I will be commentating on it later in the video. It is in my second set that I play with this team. However, the first set that we played, we got a 5-0. Again, I should warn you, this team is also going to be extremely weak to Toxapex. So if you want to run this team, run it at your own risk. I would also encourage you guys to discuss in the comments how we can balance this team out a little bit more. I needed something on the lead that would be good against dragon types and good against water types, so that's why I put Whimsicott. But again, because I'm using Whimsicott Double Fire, it is going to be extremely weak to Bastiodon. So how can we balance this team out, make it even more usable in the Great League, make it even more consistent? I'm thinking that we would need like a fighter in the lead that also has access to an ice move and that can also take care of Lantern. So Poliwrath would be out of the question. I don't know. Let's discuss in the comments. But if you're feeling adventurous and you're bored and you want your Great League games to go by a lot faster, then I would highly recommend this team. The team's extremely squishy, by the way, so the games go pretty fast. But that's enough rambling from me. Let's get into these battles. Some of these games I had to play out of my mind to get the win. Anyways, up first we are going to be seeing an amazing lead of Annihilate into our Whimsicott, and my opponent is choosing to stay in. Now I'm going to build up to the Moonblast, and my opponent goes ahead and throws Ice Punch here. I'm going to let it go because it doesn't KO, and they let me get the Moonblast off. Let's see if my opponent decides to shield or not. They don't. They let their Annihilate go. Actually, my entire team would deal with that Annihilate pretty well. And then they bring in a Lickitung. Now, I immediately swap into my Charizard. I don't even see what comes in. I'm just saving my Whimsicott just in case my opponent still has a Water type in the back. It looks like they might not because they haven't swapped out of their Lickitung yet. Now, I'm going to be able to go for these Blast Burns, take both of my opponent's shields, and then my opponent is going to lick us down, unfortunately, but I am going to be able to bring in Skeledirge, and all of the energy that my opponent has on Lickitung is not going to be great against Skeledirge. And look at that, my opponent has a Whiscash in the back. They didn't bring it in against the Charizard, but I was able to align my Whimsicott to the Whiscash, take it out with a Grass Knot, and now my Skeledirge is easily going to be able to take this Lickitung out. All I need is one Disarming Voice. That should be more than enough to KO this Lickitung. We're going to be able to take that first win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next game, we are going to see a Deoxys on the lead. This is an okay lead for Whimsicott. We are going to be resisting the counters, and if my opponent has Thunderbolt, we resist that as well. Now they're going to go ahead and throw a Psycho Boost, and I guess they're going to swap out to clear the debuff. They bring in Lickitung. I'm going to weaken it first with a Moonblast, and then I am going to swap into my Skeledirge. And my entire team actually deals pretty well again with Deoxys. I just need to keep in mind that the Psycho Boost is going to hit for neutral on Whimsicott and Charizard also has to watch out for Deoxys' second move. We take the Lickitung out, and then my opponent brings in a Guzzlord. I had some residual energy on Skeledirge, and I was able to go for a Disarming Voice, take my opponent's first shield, and then they bring Deoxys in to farm our Skeledirge down. I'm actually okay with bringing in Charizard now here. I'm going to farm up a little bit of extra energy before throwing the Blast Burn. If they let this go, this will KO. They let it go, we're able to take the Deoxys out, and then here I thought my opponent would just go for a Dragon Claw, but they go for a Crunch, and it's enough to take our Charizard out. I'm just going to hope that Whimsicott here will be able to take this win for us. I'm going to go for 2 Grass Knots. I believe my opponent is in Grass Knot range, so I'm going to go for a second one now. We were able to take their final shield with the first one, and the second one is enough to KO the Guzzlord. This is why we run Grass Knot, not Seed Bomb. Grass Knot is going to be doing so much more damage. on to the next match, we're going to see another amazing lead. This time it's Whiscash, and I'm expecting my opponent to immediately swap. They swap into a Wigglytuff. Now, I'm going to bring Skeledirge into the Wigglytuff because Charizard will actually take a lot of damage from the charms. So I have to bring in Skeledirge. I'm going to let whatever this is go. I'm expecting my opponent to throw Icy Wind to debuff us. They do. We're able to farm the Wigglytuff down though, however, and we should have enough energy to reach 2 Shadow Balls on this Whiscash before they can take us out. I'm gonna go for that second Shadow Ball, and it should put the Whiscash in the red now, and then my opponent is able to farm us down. I'm gonna bring Whimsicott back in. This Whiscash will not be able to throw anything on Whimsicott to hurt us, and I'm able to bring Charizard in and snipe the Whiscash. Now my opponent has another Charmer in the back. They have a Alolan Ninetales. I'm just going to go straight Dragon Claw here, and I don't care if my opponent shields or not. I have a lot of energy now built up, and the Dragon Claw damage should be enough combined with the Wing Attack damage to take the Alolan Ninetales out. We're able to take that win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, I'm going to be up against a friend, and the algorithm is just being really nice to me. We're getting another good lead. This time it is going to be Lantern. This is exactly where we want to see the Lantern, and we can't let it see our backline because Charizard doesn't like this thing at all. Anyways, I'm going to go for a Grass Knot. My opponent let it go, and then I'm going to go ahead and throw the Grass Knot before my opponent can throw a Surf because I want to keep Whimsicott healthy. Now my opponent brings in a Trevenant, and I go ahead and I swap immediately into one of my fire types just in case there's still something that I need to draw out. I thought they would go for a Seed Bomb, but they went straight for Shadow Ball, and they take our Skeledirge out. My opponent has an Annihilate in the back, so it looks like I'm going to be able to take this game with Charizard. I'm just going to go for Dragon Claw against this Annihilate, but unfortunately he is going to go ahead and top left. I'm so sorry for the RPS there. But moving on to the next match, the algorithm is still very much in our favor because we get another Annihilate lead, and my opponent is going to safe swap into Lickitung. Again, I'm going to play this how I played it in a previous game where I weakened the Lickitung with a Moonblast, and then I swap into my Skeledirge. But this time my opponent goes ahead and throws a Body Slam on Whimsicott, which is not great because I want Whimsicott to be a little bit healthier. But that also means that this Lickitung is now going to be energy dry, and I'm going to be able to completely farm it down with the Incinerates on Skeledirge and have so much energy stored for whatever my opponent brings in next. They bring in a Dugong. I'm going to be able to go for 2 Shadow Balls. They let the first one go, and then I'm going to be able to reach another move as well on the Dugong, get it super low, which is exactly what we want to do, and we were almost able to incinerate it down. My opponent is only going to be left with that Annihilate. Both of my final Pokemon are easily going to be able to counter it, and my opponent top left. GG's, and that gives us a 5-0 in that set with this team. Really unbalanced team, but we got the wins. And to top it all off, we get a Latias as the GBL encounter. Always nice to get a legendary from these encounters. And this 5-0 is actually going to catapult us into the 3100s, which is going to be really nice for us. Not quite at the leaderboards, but still pretty high up. But I should say the algorithm is not going to continue to be nice to us. Oh no, it is actually going to turn against us in the next set. Now up first on the lead, we are going to see an Alolan Sandslash. There it is, the counter for my lead. And when I swap into my Skeledirge, my opponent brings in a Pelipper. My entire team is also not going to be doing that great against Pelipper. Now I'm gonna go for a Shadow Ball against the Pelipper, and they go ahead and they shield, and they throw the Weather Ball here, which is actually going to be very nice for me. That means they're not going to have a lot of energy for the Whimsicott, and I'm going to be able to reach the Grass Knot before they can reach a Hurricane. And this Grass Knot will be enough to KO the Pelipper. They bring the Alolan Sandslash back in, and then they immediately swap into Altaria when they see my Charizard. But they're going to go ahead and shield the first Dragon Claw, and now this is looking like if I save 2 shields for Whimsicott, I might just be able to take the game with Whimsicott. And thank goodness my opponent goes ahead and throws some energy on my Charizard. That means I can bring Whimsicott in, go for a full farm down on this Altaria, and only have to shield once. We're able to invest that shield. We still have 1 shield left for the Ice Punch on the Alolan Sandslash, which means my opponent is going to have to build up to 2 to take us out. We're going to be able to reach 2 Moonblasts before they can do that. The second one is enough to KO the Shadow Sandslash. Again, Sandslash does not have that much bulk, especially since it's Shadow, so we're able to take that game with our Whimsicott. And also, I should point out that I wouldn't have won that if my opponent hadn't messed up in some areas where they decided to throw some energy. So they threw the Weather Ball on the Skeledirge, and then they also threw the Sky Attack on the Charizard. Otherwise, I would not have been able to take that win. But in the next game, guys, it is not looking good for me. My opponent led Alolan Ninetales with Powder Snow into my Whimsicott. I swap into my Skeledirge, and they bring out a Bastiodon, and they even shield the Shadow Ball. If they hadn't shielded that Shadow Ball, I might have had a chance to bring my Whimsicott in against the Bastiodon and possibly take it out with a Grass Knot. But because they shielded the Shadow Ball, I needed at least 1 Shadow Ball worth of damage on this thing to deal with it with the team that I have. So I had to go ahead and invest a shield into my Skeledirge in order to land a Shadow Ball. They even go ahead and they save their Bastiodon in the back. They swap back into their Alolan Ninetales, and at this point, I've given up, so I'm just going to let these Weather Balls go on my Charizard, and then I'm going to top left. There was nothing I could do there. Why would my opponent choose to shield the Shadow Ball on Bastiodon? No one does that. No one shields Bastiodon. Come on. Why me? But moving on to the next match, we're going to see another core breaker for our team. It is going to be Pelipper. And as I said before, Pelipper, not great for our team. And I was really slow to react there, but my opponent goes ahead and catches the Grass Knot on Registeel. I'm kind of fine with that because I go ahead and I farm up more energy before I swap out into my Skeledirge. I take the Zap Cannon, it's not going to be enough to KO us, and then I'm going to be able to go for a Shadow Ball, and this Shadow Ball should take the Registeel out. They also did not debuff us, so my opponent is going to go ahead and throw the Weather Ball on Skeledirge before I can reach a move, and then I'm going to bring Whimsicott back in. Now, I'm going to be able to reach 2 Grass Knots here on Whimsicott, and this is where I think I kind of mess up there. I kind of wish I didn't CMP tie on the Grass Knot, but we do CMP tie, and I'm going to have to throw this energy here on the Pelipper. The Pelipper was in the red, and that could have been really good farm for my Charizard if I had brought Charizard in immediately instead of throwing the move. Now, my opponent is going to have a Stunfisk in the back, and unfortunately, Stunfisk is just going to be able to outpace to those Rock Slides. And I'm going to go ahead and bait on the first move. I go for a Dragon Claw. My opponent does shield, and I thought maybe they would try to call the bait on the second move, so I go for a Blast Burn. They go ahead and they shield that as well, and at this point there is nothing I can do. They're going to be able to take us out with a Rock Slide, and then I'm just going to go ahead and top left against the Stunfisk. We're not going to be able to win them all. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next match, it looks like the algorithm might be being nice to us again. We'll see. My entire team deals pretty well with Poliwrath. I just have to watch out for the Scald on my fire types. And my opponent swaps into Registeel immediately. I bring in Skeledirge. I'm just going to go for a Shadow Ball on this Registeel. I think this should be enough to KO. They also didn't get the debuff on the Zap Cannon. Now, I think I go ahead and I shield here. I shield the Focus Blast, yes, because I recognize that I can farm the Registeel down completely and have so much energy for whatever my opponent is going to bring in next. They bring the Poliwrath back in, and I'm going to go for double Disarming Voice. They let the first one go, and then they are going to shield the second one. Now, I bring my Charizard in to start farming this Poliwrath down, and they bring in a Bastiodon and catch the Dragon Claw on their Bastiodon. This is looking so bad. All I have left is this Charizard and a full health Whimsicott in the back, but at least I was able to land a Blast Burn. It looks like 2 Grass Knots from this range might be enough to KO this Basti. And also I had a shield left, so I'm going to go ahead and use it on this Flamethrower. Go for this first Grass Knot, and from the damage it does, it looks like a second one will be enough to KO the Basti. Now my opponent had an Icy Wind stored on their Poliwrath, and it looks like they swapped in to go for it, but I was able to KO them with a Fairy Wind, reach another Grass Knot on Basti and take it out and take that win. GG's to our opponent. That was the only win I was able to get against a Bastiodon. Now moving on to the next match, we see another great lead, but what are the chances they have a Bastiodon in the back? I don't know, we'll see. But they safe swap into a Lickitung, again, gonna weaken them with a Moonblast, and then I'm going to bring in my Skeleturge, and I'm going to go for a full farm down. I'm gonna be easily able to take whatever this Lickitung is going to throw at us. Interesting, I actually don't go for a full farm down. I guess I wanted to keep my Skeleturge healthy, but they bring in a Bastiodon. At least I'm going to be able to land a Shadow Ball on it. I'm not going to be able to reach another Shadow Ball, however. They're able to farm us down, and then I'm just going to bring Whimsicott in here, shield it, and hope that I can do enough damage to this Bastiodon. But they go ahead and they swap into Annihilate. Now I'm going to bring Charizard in here, and I'm not going to shield anything. They have Night Slash. That's not enough to take us out, so I'm just going to go for these Dragon Claws, and I'm thinking if I can go ahead and go for a farm down on Whimsicott, if I'll be able to reach, I don't know, 3 Grass Knots, but my opponent still has 2 shields. I need at least 3 to take the Bastiodon out. There is absolutely no way I'm going to win this. Also, they got a boost on the Night Slash on the Annihilate, so those counters were doing a lot more damage to our Whimsicott. So unfortunately for us, we're not going to be able to take that win. That's another Bastiodon in the back. But also, what are the chances that we see that many Bastiodons in that second set that we played? Like, almost everyone had it. But thank you guys so much for watching. That brings us to the end of our video. If you guys enjoyed my videos, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!